$1,200 for 2 people.
Right now, Salt Bay's empire looks nothing like the global powerhouse it once was.
Salt Bay isn't everyone's bay anymore.
In the United States, most of his restaurants have closed. Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, Beverly Hills, all shut down.
Salt Bay above my mouth.
Yeah.
God, I hate that guy. I'm gonna just buy and try this 60-pound hamburger.
Right.
And it was delivered. You can tell that a burger is just not good.
From 7 locations across the country, only 2 remain, Miami and New York. In London, what was once a buzzing Knightsbridge hotspot has seen profits nosedive by millions, with customers and critics calling it little more than a tourist trap.
Come on, Salt Bay. Salt Bay does not have a pot belly. Oh, behave. I'd never trust you seized my burger.
The hype that once kept his steakhouses packed has vanished. Instead of lines outside the door, there are lawsuits inside the courtroom. Former employees accuse him of wage theft, harassment, and forcing illegal tip pools. Customers blast him online as a scammer who sold $1,800 gold steaks with the quality of a cheap diner. And his social media presence, once a steady stream of celebrity cameos, has gone eerily quiet. Even worse, Salt Bay himself has become persona non grata, banned from FIFA events.
Guys, the calls are coming from inside the house because apparently this Salt Bay dude is really good friends with FIFA president Gianni Infantino, and there's all these photos of them two socializing and whatever. So it seems like that's what everyone's jumping to the conclusion that maybe that's how he felt he had access to this field, because I'm friends with the president of FIFA. Of course I can take your trophy and grab your arm and do all of this stuff. So it is absolutely disrespectful. It's showing how this, like, how the era of social media influence and Instagram and taking photos for clout is just taking away any decorum or respect.
Publicly kicked out of Champions League after parties and mocked worldwide as a clout chaser, his reputation is in ruins. What started as a lighthearted meme is now remembered mostly with eye rolls and ridicule. So how did it all go so wrong? How did a butcher's apprentice who sprinkled his way into superstardom lose it all? Salt Bay's story didn't start with gold-plated steaks and private jets. It started in a tiny Turkish village where Nusr-Et grew up the son of a miner. Money was scarce, opportunities even scarcer. By the age of 13, he had already left school and taken a grueling job as a butcher's apprentice in Istanbul, working 13-hour days, 7 days a week. He wasn't famous, but he was hungry for something bigger. Over the years, Nusr-Et scraped together experience in steakhouses across Turkey, saving every bit of money he could. In 2007, he even borrowed $3,400 from the bank, not to buy a car, not to buy a house, but to travel the world and learn about meat. He visited Argentina, the US, and other countries, studying how the steak business worked. By 2010, he returned home and opened a tiny 8-table restaurant. It wasn't glamorous, but it caught the attention of Turkish billionaire Ferit Şahenk, who invested and helped Nusr-Et expand. Slowly, Nusr-Et was building his empire. But the real turning point came in January 2017. That's when he posted a short Instagram video of himself carving a steak with theatrical precision, then sprinkling salt from his fingertips down his forearm in a cobra-like pose. It was flashy, ridiculous, and absolutely perfect for the internet. Within days, the video racked up millions of views. Memes spread like wildfire. Athletes mimicked the salt sprinkle during celebrations. TV shows parodied him. And suddenly the world had a new obsession: Salt Bay.
Shh! It's happening! Oh!
And Nusr-Et knew exactly how to capitalize on it. Almost overnight, he announced luxury restaurants in New York and London, expanding his Nusr-Et brand into a global spectacle. Celebrities, athletes, and influencers lined up not just to eat, but to be seen eating at his steakhouses. People weren't paying for food anymore. They were paying for the Salt Bay experience. For a brief moment, it looked like Nusr-Et had hacked fame itself. He turned a viral meme into a multi-million-dollar empire. But hidden under the sparkle of 24-karat steaks and Instagram selfies, the cracks were already forming. Because behind the shades and the meme, Salt Bay's empire was built less on substance and more on spectacle. And that's where the problems began. The viral fame that could have humbled Nusr-Et only seemed to inflate him. He wasn't just a chef anymore. He was an icon, or at least that's what he believed. In interviews, he bragged, "Now everybody wants to be a butcher because of me. Kids want to be Salt Bae. I'm an idol," and he lived like it. Nusr-Et turned his Instagram into a shrine of shirtless workout clips, model-like poses, and carefully staged theatrics. At his restaurants, it wasn't about serving food. It was about serving Salt Bae. He would parade from table to table, sunglasses on, while a personal salt boy followed him around carrying a bowl of salt like it was holy water. The focus was always on him. But while the cameras adored him, his employees painted a darker picture. Behind the gold-plated steaks, a toxic empire was brewing. A 2023 Business Insider investigation and a string of lawsuits revealed a workplace that former staff described as the Hunger Games. Workers were fired on the spot for minor mistakes. Break a glass in front of him and you were out. Wear the wrong shirt. Fired. One waiter was even denied a job because Salt Bae didn't like his shirt. And then came the allegations of wage theft. Multiple lawsuits accused Nusr-Et of skimming tips. 3% off the top of every credit card tip, pocketed before staff saw a dime. Others said tips were withheld entirely when celebrities dined, so that Salt Bae could keep the glory and the cash. A class action suit in New York claimed management systematically fired any waiter who complained. The punishments could be brutal. One 19-year-old food runner had $140 deducted from her pay for delivering leftovers to the wrong table. Another lost $800 in tips because a customer walked out without paying, as if she was expected to chase them down the street. For female staff, things were even uglier. Multiple lawsuits described a boys' club culture, where women were pressured to wear short skirts, heels, and revealing tops. When one bartender protested and asked to wear the standard uniform, she says she was harassed, followed home, and ultimately fired. Another woman was denied promotion simply because Salt Bae didn't find her attractive enough. It wasn't just the staff being exploited. Customers, too, were deceived. Former employees admitted they were told to lie, passing off cheaper cuts of meat as premium, pouring leftover wine into fresh glasses, even falsely labeling steaks as halal. One worker summed it up. It was all about squeezing as much money out of people as possible. For the world, Salt Bae was a glamorous meme, but for those who worked with him, he was described as a petty tyrant, a man with a godlike complex who cared more about Instagram likes than human beings. And as this toxic culture spread, it became harder to hide. The public was starting to see past the sunglasses and the salt sprinkle, and when customers themselves began to feel cheated, the empire's cracks widened. If the staff were calling him a tyrant behind the scenes, customers were beginning to call him something else, a scam artist. Salt Bae's restaurants weren't just expensive, they were outrageous. A $1,800 gold-plated tomahawk steak, a $100 burger, a $10 can of Red Bull, even baklava sprinkled with gold flakes for $25. For a while, people paid simply for the spectacle, but when the novelty wore off, they started speaking out. In London, the backlash was brutal. Within months of opening in 2021, his Knightsbridge steakhouse ranked among the worst restaurants in the city on TripAdvisor. Out of nearly 17,500 listings, Salt Bae's sat at the bottom with an abysmal 2-star rating. Reviews called it a complete disgrace, with food described as bland, undercooked, and not worth the price. One diner fumed that they were rushed through their meal, moved mid-dinner to make space for wealthier customers, and given the bill before dessert was finished. In New York, things were even worse. His Salt Bae burger joint was infamously dubbed the worst restaurant in New York City. Critics compared the food to rubber, shoe leather, and airplane hangar vibes. Gimmicks like a ladies-only burger were mocked as sexist and desperate. By 2023, the place was so empty, locals joked it was basically a gold-plated ghost town. It quietly shut down after 3 years. But the most damaging blow came from the internet itself. Viral receipts of eye-watering bills. $37,000 in London, $100,000 in Dubai, spread online. Instead of envy, the reaction was disgust. Ordinary people saw it as flaunting excess during global inflation and food insecurity. One British butcher even recreated Salt Bae's gold steak for just £100 to prove how ridiculous the markup was. Even within the food world, professionals began to openly mock him. Michelin-starred chefs slammed the gold gimmick as embarrassing, saying anyone who paid those prices had more money than sense. What was supposed to be luxury now looked like daylight robbery. Diners left feeling cheated. Critics called it a disgrace, and memes painted him as a conman hiding behind theatrics. Salt Bae could have fixed it. He could have lowered prices, focused on quality, and proved his restaurants were more than Instagram sets. But instead, he doubled down, flaunting bills online like trophies, bragging that money comes and goes, while millions of people around the world struggled to put food on the table. And if customers thought that was tone deaf, what he did next made it unforgivable. If overpriced steaks and scammed customers weren't enough, Salt Bae managed to stumble into something far worse: global politics. And this time, the backlash wasn't just about food. In September 2018, as Venezuela was collapsing under one of the worst economic crises in modern history, President Nicolas Maduro made a stop in Istanbul. Back home, ordinary Venezuelans were starving. 90% of households couldn't afford enough to eat. Children were rummaging through trash cans, and millions had fled the country. And yet, while his people suffered, Maduro was filmed at Nusr-Et, Istanbul, puffing cigars, laughing, and feasting on $1,000 cuts of meat served by none other than Salt Bae himself. Nusr-Et sliced the steaks theatrically, sprinkled salt with his signature flourish, and even posted the clips on Instagram with the caption #ElPresidente.
Borche posted the videos of Maduro's recent visit on his Instagram, seen by nearly 16 million followers. But the post drew considerable backlash from critics who noted that as Maduro treats himself to this lavish meal, citizens of his country are going hungry.
The internet erupted. Venezuelans around the world were furious. Protesters gathered outside Salt Bae's restaurants in Miami and New York, chanting and waving flags.
Go there and do that. It's like in defiance of the crisis.
Social media exploded with the hashtag #ShameOnYouSaltBae. Memes showed him sprinkling salt over starving families instead of steaks. Even US politicians weighed in. Senator Marco Rubio blasted him on Twitter as a weirdo who was proudly hosting a dictator while Venezuelans starved. He even posted the address of Salt Bae's Miami steakhouse, sparking a wave of one-star reviews calling the restaurant overpriced and immoral. Yelp had to temporarily freeze the page to filter the flood of outrage. Caught off guard, Salt Bae deleted the videos, but he never apologized, not a word of regret. To many, that silence was deafening. It made him look like he wasn't sorry for what he did, only sorry he got caught. The damage was done. This wasn't just bad reviews or overpriced food anymore. To millions, Salt Bae had crossed a moral line. He wasn't just a greedy showman. He was now seen as tone-deaf, out of touch, and willing to cozy up to power, no matter how corrupt. And the truth is, this obsession with power and fame didn't stop with Maduro. 4 years later, it would explode again, this time on the biggest stage in the world, with billions watching. If the Maduro dinner tarnished Salt Bae's image, the World Cup final in Qatar absolutely destroyed it. December 18th, 2022. Argentina had just defeated France in one of the most thrilling World Cup finals of all time. The players were in tears. Messi was finally crowned champion of the world, and the stadium was electric with joy. It was history in the making. And then, out of nowhere, Salt Bae appeared. Wearing his signature shades, Nusr-Et somehow slipped past FIFA security and wandered onto the pitch like he belonged there. He weaved through the celebrating players, desperately trying to grab their attention. Cameras caught him clinging to Lionel Messi, pestering him for selfies while the exhausted superstar tried to walk away. At one point, Messi shook him off with visible annoyance, a rare glimpse of frustration from the normally calm captain. But Salt Bae didn't stop there. He grabbed the most sacred trophy in football, the FIFA World Cup, a trophy that only champions and heads of state are ever allowed to touch. He posed with it, kissed it, and even pretended to sprinkle salt on it. To fans, it was sacrilege. Within hours, the backlash was global. Clips went viral of him clutching Messi, mugging for the cameras, and acting as if he were part of Argentina's hard-earned victory. Fans called it nauseating clout chasing, entitlement on display, and the ultimate proof that Salt Bae thought the rules didn't apply to him. Memes mocked him as the guy who ruined Messi's big moment just to stay relevant. This time, it wasn't just the public dragging him. FIFA itself launched an investigation into how he even got onto the pitch. Days later, they made it official. Salt Bae was banned from all future FIFA events. The US Open Cup followed suit, tweeting that he was no longer welcome. Even the Rolling Loud Music Festival joined in, publicly banning him for the laughs. By June 2023, the humiliation was complete. At the Champions League final after party in Istanbul, Salt Bae tried to slip in again and was thrown out by security in front of cameras. Footage showed him standing awkwardly outside, signing a few autographs, and insisting he wasn't there for the party, but for his thousands of fans. The internet roasted him mercilessly. By the time FIFA slammed the door shut on him, the damage was already spreading to his empire. What had once been one of the most hyped restaurant brands in the world was now unraveling, and fast. In the United States, Nusr-Et restaurants began shutting down one after another. Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, Beverly Hills, all closed. By 2025, only 2 remained, New York and Miami, down from 7 just a couple years earlier. The official excuse was refocusing on international markets, but insiders knew the truth. The hype had died, the bad press had piled up, and locals had stopped showing up. London told the same story. When the Knightsbridge steakhouse opened in 2021, it pulled in nearly £7 million in just 3 months. But by 2023, profits had dropped by nearly 50%. Revenues fell from £13.6 million to £9.3 million in a single year. The once buzzing restaurant turned into a tourist trap, with locals steering clear. British tabloids mocked it for literally turning down the heating in winter to save money, an almost comical fall from gold-plated glory. Even in Dubai and Istanbul, where his brand was strongest, the aura had faded. They weren't prestigious anymore, just flashy spots for curious tourists. The locals, the food critics, the loyal customers that make restaurants thrive. They had moved on. And Salt Bae himself, the social media god who once posted daily clips of celebrities lining up for his sprinkle, had gone quiet. His engagement collapsed. The meme that made him famous was now a punchline. On TikTok, he wasn't an icon. He was a cringe relic of 2017. This wasn't just a financial collapse, it was a cultural one. Salt Bae had become the embodiment of everything people hate about viral fame. Salt Bae's story began like a fairy tale, a poor butcher's apprentice who fought his way from the back streets of Istanbul to the front pages of the world. With nothing more than a sprinkle of salt, he captured the internet's imagination and built an empire worth millions. But what lifted him up was also what brought him down. The ego, the arrogance, the obsession with fame, it all poisoned the empire from within. He mistreated his staff, cheated his customers, flaunted excess while others struggled, and chased clout on the world's biggest stages until people couldn't stand the sight of him. And in the end, the meme became the mockery. Salt Bae could have been remembered as a lighthearted icon, a chef who turned a meme into magic. Instead, he became a cautionary tale of viral fame, how fast it can build you up and how mercilessly it can tear you down. Because in the end, his downfall wasn't caused by haters or bad luck. It was cooked and served by his own hand.